Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. I got the date right. Bear with me as I am working on lighting. I have to go back and forth, and there's nobody here to pull it back and then say, okay, that's good. But looking a little bright this morning, but Jesus is the light of the world. We got the good Bishop Rahsaan Hall, as some of us affectionately call him in the activism world. He's coming in today to talk about the work that he has done since he started, and even before that, 4 years ago, in reference to the difference the DA makes, excuse me, here in Suffolk County, and was very instrumental in educating and informing us about the difference the DA makes. However, before I bring him in, I just have to acknowledge the tragic death of, I believe it's 9 people that were killed in the Bronx. And in watching CNN this morning, it was referenced to one of the causes that contributed to the deaths, along with some other inequities around the design of the apartment and things like that. It was a space heater. And so this coming Friday at 9 a.m., Jack Dempsey, the fire commissioner, will be coming into the Java Cafe at 9 a.m. to talk with us about space heaters. And just to share this, and I'm going to bring Rahsaan in because he shared his personal experience with me about this. Just to share that, you know, portable heaters are not do not meet the requirements of the housing code and should only be used temporarily during extreme emergencies. This temporary heating source should never be left on overnight, and users should ensure it's free and clear of combustible materials. The other piece is, and I know this, and it seems like I'm freezing a little bit here. The other piece is, I know this from experience growing up, you need to make sure if you use a space heater, you plug it directly into the wall and not with an extension cord and things like that. But I had to hold space for those that transitioned, that were lost due to that. And I'm going to bring my guest in at this time. We're not here particularly to talk about that. However, he was very transparent and shared. And so, Rahsaan, you know that this is an important issue, along with everything else that you do. This is an important issue. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning.
In the Java Cafe. You have been in a few times, and even before the Java Cafe or Java with Jimmy, we spent some time online a few years ago talking about the difference the DA makes and talking about the importance of participating in that particular race. So say good morning to the people. It is Testimony Tuesday, so I would ask you to give your testimony. No, sir, just joking. But say good morning and greet the people. Also going to be fun.
Yeah, praise the Lord, everybody. Good morning, Jimmy. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I just appreciate the way that you bring relevant and important topics to the community for us to engage with. Usually things that are on our minds, but we don't have the space all the time to take the deeper dive into those issues. And in regards to your opening segment and topic, it was actually 17 people who died in the Bronx. Yeah, 17. 8 of them were children.
Okay. So they were saying 1 point. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that, I think that's probably the number that you had in your head. But, as you mentioned, family tragedy, I think it was around 2005, actually, that 5 of my family members down in Savannah, Georgia, died in a fire. And because of a space heater. And it was an aunt, 2 aunts of mine, and 3 of my cousins, all small children. And, the way poverty impacts different family members is one of those realities where there's no heat in the house, but the electricity is running, so you plug in the space heater, and if the space heater is not properly plugged in, or if it's in a place where it's going to catch on fire, and while people are sleeping, the smoke inhalation, you're either not going to wake up, or you're going to be disoriented when you wake up and not be able to get out. And it was a horrific and unnecessary tragedy. And so, just as a reminder, like you said, those space heaters are dangerous. They have to be used with extreme caution, and safety and awareness. So thank you for creating that space for me to share what happened in my family. And my heart and prayers certainly go out to the folks who recently lost loved ones in the Bronx and anywhere else where that happens, because it's an occurrence that happens a lot more than we think it does.
It definitely is, sir. And thank you again for sharing. It just, you talked about the injustices, and I heard one of the representatives from the Bronx talk about a lot of the injustices that contributed to that family,
Right.
different family construction, how the public housing was designed. And there are other injustices in which we deal with, particularly right here locally. And one of the things that you and you led, and I just supported, did a little flyer and hosted the event. Is the difference the DA makes. And so can you tell us a little bit of about the foundation of that? What was it that we did 4 years ago to ensure that people are educated and informed about that difference?
Well, I used to be a prosecutor in Suffolk County from 2000 to 2008, so I knew well what it was that prosecutors did and had, and the impact that they had on communities. And, when I left the DA's office and started doing civil rights work, and particularly when I was at the ACLU, there were instances where it was the district attorney's office that was always the roadblock to progressive reforms, whether it was trying to eliminate mandatory minimum sentences for certain offenses because they disproportionately impact Black and brown folks and exacerbate the racial disparities in the system, or whether or not it was trying to address the drug laboratory scandal. It was the district attorneys who stood in opposition to resolving those cases. And so, myself as a former prosecutor and the advocates at the ACLU, we all knew, but we didn't understand how much the public knew about it. So we did some polling, found out 4 in 10 voters didn't know that the DA was an elected position. And over half of the voters didn't think that district attorneys really had that much power. But when working with focus groups and we told people what it is DAs do and what they have power over, 81% said they would pay attention the next time. So we launched a campaign called What a Difference a DA Makes that was really focused on educating the public about the role, power, and influence of district attorneys and what they do, everything from policing all the way through legislative reform and everything in between. And so we went around the state. There were 5 contested races in 2018. The last time there were that many contested races was 32 years ago at the height of the war on drugs. And people turned out in record numbers. We saw a substantial increase in ballots cast for district attorney races in all 5 of those contested races. And in 2 of them, progressive prosecutors won. And I'd like to think that that was due in large part to the reframing of the conversation about the importance of district attorney races. And so, I would go to different places. I would be on with you and different shows like that to really get that information to the public. And there were a bunch of other people who got engaged, mobilizing around particular candidates and sharing information. But that's what I believe led to the shift in the conversation and people's understanding of why that role is so significant and why it was important to get somebody in there that could make a difference.
Speaking of somebody in there, we, talked to the fact that Rachel Rollins was elected. She really, and would you agree with the statement that she reformed that office here in Suffolk County? And I believe also had a national impact because either some other lawyers from here, not lawyers, some other district attorneys from here in Massachusetts or somewhere, they wrote her a letter about her progressive stance and what it was doing to their county and blah, blah, blah. Did that movement make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Rachel wasn't alone. There were other progressive prosecutors throughout the country, probably not as outspoken as DA Rollins, but still doing the things that matter, declining to prosecute certain offenses, holding police officers accountable for misconduct, talking specifically and explicitly about race in the role of prosecution and law enforcement, and how the practices of DA's offices and police lead to significant racial disparities in the system. And so she certainly captured the headlines, but there were others who were doing it as well. And yes, there were district attorneys here who have a much more conservative view of the role of district attorney, that tough on crime approach. But, their rebuke of her is certainly laced with racism and sexism, because the minute a Black woman steps out to try to do something different, what is perceived as different, there is a backlash. The crimes that she said she wasn't going to prosecute in the first instance were crimes that, when I was an assistant district attorney in Suffolk County, were cases that we dismissed all the time, but nobody really cared about it. But let a Black woman get out there with a memo that says this is how we're going to do it. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. And the reality is it actually got better outcomes. When you decline to prosecute people, they're less likely to come back into court. And so for a state that has such a high recidivism rate, you would think that the existing other prosecutors would want to pursue something that would reduce the recidivism rate.
So speaking of recidivism and existing prosecutors, we have to acknowledge the fact that our district attorney is, as of yesterday, our U.S. attorney representing the state of Massachusetts. And so there is a district attorney by the name of Kevin Hayden, I believe, that is the interim. I'm going to reach out to him and
I can help you with that.
I appreciate it, because we want to get him to come in because of the change that has happened within that office. There is a sentiment within the community, and this isn't, saying I have any indication that he'll go one way or another. We just need to know that progressive a foundation that was laid by District Attorney Rollins is going to continue and not be subject to a lot of politics. I believe the other thing is, because there was such attention brought to the office and Attorney Rollins made the change, different old typical eyes or old school DA candidates may pop up in this upcoming race. This is an election year for the district attorney's seat. And so again, we're here in 2022, post George Floyd, post qualified immunity. How important is it this year, even more so, Rahsaan, that we pay attention to what's going on in this race?
It's just as important now as it was in 2018, and probably more so. What DA Rollins was able to do in that role, again, using that pulpit, that bully pulpit, that platform to talk about how things can be done differently, the exoneration of wrongfully convicted people, the dismissal of drug laboratory scandal cases, the way that she engaged with community, working to solve unsolved homicides. These were things that were a part of some of the progressive values that she took into the office, and we can't afford to lose that progress. I think in regards to now DA Hayden, I think you definitely need to get him on the show. Full disclosure, he's a personal friend. He used to be my supervisor when I worked in the DA's office. I'm his son's godfather. So, I may be a little biased in my perspective on him. So I think it's important for the community to engage with him, to make sure that the things that led people to vote for Rollins overwhelmingly, right? It was a field of 5 in the primary, and she cleaned that thing out. And that's because that's what the people wanted, despite the narrative about Black people and progressives splitting the vote, right? She won against somebody who was perceived to be the heir apparent. And so we can't lose the progress that's been made. We can't revert back to that kind of centrist, moderate, traditional prosecutor role. There are a lot of things that were put in place that need to continue to build that momentum. And there are several other DA races that will be happening across the state as well.
So let's jump right there. Speaking of others, speaking of other DA races, I follow you on social media. We're friends, and I've seen some chatter. And you are exploring the potential consideration of possibly looking at what's another word? A buffer.
Bro, we good. You got it.
At looking at running for district attorney yourself.
Yes.
And so what transitioned you from the work and the advocacy that you've done at the ACLU, which is a bully pulpit, which is a nationally affiliated organization, to move into a space that and I believe you're in Plymouth County.
Yes.
Not Suffolk. And so when I first heard the murmuring, I was like, where you live? And I was sadly disappointed it wasn't Suffolk, but so Plymouth County. And I'm not very familiar, but Plymouth County might the voter construct might be a little bit different than Boston. What has been the typical demographic stance persona of the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office? And I know that question, holds some weight, and you considering you got to be cognizant of how you answer that. But we also know you're the real bishop. So, what are all the things that are going on in your mind to make this consideration?
Yeah. So I am considering running for Plymouth County DA. There's been a couple articles that have talked to it. And so, I think one of the things that brought me to this decision was the experiences that I had over the last 4 years doing the What a Difference a DA Makes program with the ACLU, engaging with residents and finding out how much people don't know about what the DA's office does, talking to people who have been wrongfully convicted, like Darrell Jones, who served 32 years for a crime he didn't commit. And it was the Plymouth County DA's office that sought to re-prosecute him for that crime, even in the face of evidence that the conviction should have been thrown out long ago when a key witness recanted their testimony. Talking to residents of Plymouth County who said the 20-year incumbent was someone that they felt needed to go, that they needed something different because of the racial disparities, because of the wrongful convictions, because of some of the concerns around the integrity of the office. And so that's why I'm exploring it. I'm having these conversations to talk to people to find out what it is that they prioritize from the perspective of public safety. And so that's what's led me to run. As far as the demographics of the county, there's about 500,000 people who live in Plymouth County. It's Brockton. It goes out to Hull along the coast and all the way down to Plymouth. Then you get down to the south coast, which is like Wareham and Marion and Mattapoisett, and then you get the not the Berkshires, but the Bridgewaters, Middleborough, Lakeville, Kingston, Carver, Plimpton, Rochester, Rockland, Whitman. So these are some pretty conservative places. It's 86% white. And there's a lot of municipalities that have supported and overwhelmingly vote for Trump. So that's, I got my work cut out for me to the extent that I decide to do this. But I also feel like a candidacy, like something that I would consider bringing to the table, is something that has the potential to be effective.
I believe so. And if favorable, what would be because there is a different construct of the issues when you talk about public safety. A lot of the towns and things that you name I deal with the same issues, maybe some similarities in populations on mass and caste, but we're not going to go there. But what would be one of your major platform points in the context that there's a different conversation when it comes to public safety in Plymouth County?
I think another important thing is, looking at getting rid of the low-level offenses that clog up the district courts. The amount of cases that funnel through our district courts that are motor vehicle offenses, that are simple cases that can be resolved through other means. I think that is a significant issue that needs to be resolved. I think looking at the issue of racial justice, understanding what the racial disparities in the system are, how many people are actually being funneled through there relative to their representation in the larger population. Basically, are there more Black people going through this system than actually live in the county? That's something that we need to get a handle on, and in engaging in an authentic way with the victims and survivors of crime, instead of using them as a tool in the larger wheel of prosecution, finding out what it is that they need and ways that they can be supported in ways that the system has traditionally not done.
One thing that I just heard there that I can extract from that last statement is, and as much as we appreciate the work that you do in the racial justice component, what I just heard was something I remember hearing in college was you can't sometimes talk race without class. Though there are
Mhm.
disproportionate impacts on, folks that look like you and um, I just had the thought when you said that was, though the construct in the county may be different, a lot of the inequities that disproportionately impact us as Black and brown people, when you talk class, there are people in that county that deal with issues of poverty and crime as well. And so thank you for sort of making me even think about that. With the racial justice work that you have done, um, where do you see us going? The gubernatorial race is this year. We have a hot second Suffolk district Senate race. There are some opportunity. We had, our first Black mayor. We had our first elected female of color mayor. Where do you see us going, not just in Plymouth County, but in Massachusetts, from a Black man's perspective?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the progress that we've seen in electoral politics translates to future victories for people of color and Black folks in particular, as well as substantive change to policy, but more importantly, to base building in communities. It's important for us to elect candidates, but those candidates are only going to be as good as the constituency that sends them there. And the more power our communities and community organizations have, political power, financial power, policy power, the more power we have, the more accountable those elected officials will be to the community. So there's a lot of organizing that has to happen. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to get built out. There's a lot of resources that need to be directed to these organizations that are doing the mobilizing and the organizing that can create the platform for progressive candidates and candidates of color to run on. And we're also doing it in the midst of a backlash. Every time there is significant progress from people and communities of color, there is this overwhelming white backlash that consistently happens throughout history. And so we've got to fight against that. It's just like, yeah, that's a bit too much. You have Obama, now we got to fix that. Let's get a Trump, right? We got the Reconstruction era, we've got the post-Reconstruction era. You got the Civil Rights Movement, we got the war on drugs. So, so for some of these small but significant steps that have happened in the trajectory of our human experience, there's always some regression. And so we've got to fight against that. And the way to do that is building power in our communities.
So there's a couple of things there, and I'm going to be a political history nerd for a minute. And so I heard something this morning watching CNN that they talked about the backlash that we're getting when you mentioned that we had Obama, now we had Trump, and the other examples, and you mentioned Reconstruction. I heard one of the commentators say that this period right now is comparable to right after we were getting into what now is classified post-Reconstruction or in the Reconstruction period. And so do you agree that we right now are in a similar opportunity? Tanisha and I use this proverbial window. The window's open, post-George Floyd, qualified immunity, race reckoning. Just again, it's not just you and I talking, but for a minute, let's just you and I. Do you agree, Rahsaan, that we're close to a similar Reconstruction period? And there's the Sheriff Jesus. So go ahead, sir, and I'll tell him I'll get him back.
Yeah, I think we are. There is a window of opportunity. Some folks have referred to this period of time as the third Reconstruction, the civil rights movement being the second Reconstruction. And really what it is an opportunity to make the investments, to bring about advancements, to cover what had not yet been done. And so that's why folks were arguing that a lot of the ARPA money and federal funding, COVID response funding, should be explicitly and directly invested into Black communities and communities of color who have for years been disenfranchised and left out of opportunities. And so since we're spending money, let's be intentional about spreading out that money specifically into our communities to make up for the disinvestment and disenfranchisement that has happened over the years. And so the problem is just for the moment that there was this interest in doing something. There were people in the streets, police cars were burning, legislators like, well, we need to do something about addressing policing and police reform. There was an important police reform package that was passed. It built the Post Commission, the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission that certifies and now decertifies police officers. It puts limits on use of force, but it didn't get to the most critical issue, which was qualified immunity, which holds law enforcement officers accountable for violating people's rights. You know, how do you get compensated when, the police have either killed you or seriously harmed you if they're protected by this legal doctrine that prevents them from being liable in a civil setting? So there are those types of opportunities. This pandemic has wreaked havoc on our communities, on our businesses, and what type of investment is going to be made to not get them back to where they were, but to get them back to where they should have been, but for the disinvestment over the generations.
Bishop, you doing your good teaching and preaching. Doug is in the room this morning. Doug don't come in here that often, so you're
Doug's in the building. What's up,
one
Doug?
of Boston's huge political operatives. Good to see you in the room, Doug.
See Lori in there too.
I see Lori in there talking about Teach Rahsaan. That's the bishop. That is the bishop of. I forgot what Calvin and I call you. The bishop in the Lord's Church of, was it advocacy or activism, something like that. Rahsaan, this thing exudes out of you, and so it's very interesting. Kind of surprised, but not surprised that you would step into this role, and especially given everything that you've named. Because we move in a mental health space, I have to ask: have you considered, as a Black man, the mental health impact? Because you are in a very interesting county, and everything that you just named, from brother to brother, I'm like, you good in this? You know what I mean? Because it's just very interesting out in the stats you named. There's support for non-progressive candidates out there, and so have you ensured that you have the support, and I know your family and things like that, but I just got to ask, are you good and considered all things, or are you considering all things, including mental health?
Absolutely. I cannot do this first without God. Second, without the support of my family. Third, a close circle of friends and supporters that include, Lori and Doug and a lot of others, some who are working behind the scenes. And I think mental health is a serious a part of it. I think counseling and therapy are things that are sometimes considered taboo in the Black community, and they can't be. I've certainly seen a therapist myself. I think it's important, it's healthy to help process the issues that we're going through. And I know the road that I have ahead. Pulling together a circle of clergy to get that covering and support on this endeavor. Certainly, solicit the prayers of your listeners. I got my congregation in Cambridge, St. Paul AME Church, supporting me. So, I think I've been exercising more. I got down with the Peloton. What? At first I was just like, nah, everybody's doing that. But then it's like, it's a game changer. So, and the thing that I haven't done that I need to get better at is getting more rest.
Okay.
That's really important. Eating healthy and good quality food, I think that's important too. So it is a host of things that we need to be doing to make sure that we are taking care of our physical, mental, and spiritual selves, and especially in situations like that. And I am endeavoring to do all of those things. So thank you, and thank you for asking, brother. I love you, and I say it explicitly. I love you, and brothers. We need to say to our brothers that we love them much more.
And I love you. I love you too. And I didn't start off with this, but my mind is going back to West Roxbury, District Court. And when you were just out of not high school, Jesus,
Law school.
law school, and to see you, sir, from then coming in with Judge Kantowitz, if you remember,
I remember.
this is going way back. And so I am so godly proud of you, black man proud of you, brother proud of you, of the difference that you help make, because we without that information and education, Rahsaan, and I know you give due deference to other partners and things like that, but you were a face and lead of that. And I believe that without that information and education, we wouldn't have got to a point to recognize we needed to pay attention to the district attorney's race, as well as making an informed decision. And look where we are now, where this wonderful black queen has ascended to the U.S. attorney. And as you said, there were a number of other progressive candidates, and this was a sort of a national movement, right? It wasn't just
Yep.
here in Suffolk County; it was a national movement. And so, sir, what is it that you would say? I'll pull you into the bishopric a little bit. What is it that you would say to a community away from your consideration of running, away from your wonderful activist, but as a black man, as a father, as someone who's a part of the black community, where we're dealing with a lot right now, with the pandemic. I saw something pop up the other day. They did a remix, and I've heard the term Deltacron. And so there's a lot going. I'm like, Lord Jesus. And then folks was like, James, you didn't know? I was like, no, that was the first time I saw hashtag Deltacron.
Yeah, that's not a real thing.
It's not a real thing. I seen it now. Okay. That's good, Jesus. I didn't do the research yet, but I seen it pop up as a notification. Anyway, what is it that you would say to the community, kind of staying in that mental health space, but also from the vein of just a brother? And we talked earlier in the pre about our pastors that are dealing with a lot. So away from everything else, with the politics and the advocacy, what is it that you would say to the community?
We've got to stay connected. And I think that is something that is critically important. It has been difficult for a lot of people in the past several years, just dealing with this pandemic, the uncertainty about what the future holds, not being able to congregate and see family because these spikes and flares of different variants. I just had COVID. So I know what that's like, and it's difficult, but I think it is important for us to be intentional about finding ways to come together, whether it's virtually or in person safely, because that's how we're built. We are social creatures. We need to be connected. I think politics creates a great opportunity for folks to do that, but also a lot of the efforts that we saw emerge to a level of prominence when the pandemic first hit were the mutual aid groups, the mutual aid societies that were really coming together, pulling on the resources that existed within community and putting neighbors in touch with neighbors and helping and supporting people. There's nothing that feels better than when you actually help somebody and do something nice for a person that supports and helps them. And so whether it's running for office to help a community, a district, whatever it is, or checking in on your neighbor, or making a donation to an organization that's doing positive work, or calling a loved one that you hadn't talked to in a long time. These are the things that keep us connected and show that we care for one another. And that's the only way that we are going to survive any of this, is if we have love in our hearts, not just for our family and friends, but for the broader society that we are a part of. And I think that is something that we need to kind of keep centered and focused in all that we do, is having love for our neighbors.
I agree. It a lot of what I alluded to before and wasn't making light about the politics, it is important because those policies and whatnot inform, and that's the thing that I think we need to stay reminded of, Rahsaan, that out of all the advocacy, out of running for office, out of Java with Jimmy, out of whatever, the real foundation of it is to improve the quality of life for all. Equity. That is our experience here on earth in an equitable manner. And connection is definitely a part of that. I'm glad I'm connected with you, sir. Over the years, and I thank you for combos. This is the man that gave me a whole different perspective when it comes to protecting Black women. And I remember that day you asked, you said, "How do you feel as a Black man when you are discriminated against by white men?" And I said, "Oh," blah, 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 blah. And he said, "Well, that's how the sisters feel when we." Brother, did I get a tear out of you, or you just tired? I'll drop these glasses will come off in a minute. Oh, Rahsaan, I really do appreciate you because that was a major life changer, for me. So along with the policy and the advocacy and everything else you've done, you've had a personal influence on my life. And so I really appreciate you, brother. What is it that you would say to close out to the people? When are you making a determination, considering the potential and possibility? When does that change to, possibly something else?
Yeah, I'll probably have a decision for folks sometime around Black History Month. I think we're always making Black history, so we'll see. But I think my word is to stay engaged, stay connected, and build power. We really got to build power and take advantage of the opportunity that we have as a community, as a Black community, but also as the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We deserve better in a lot of spaces, and our advocacy and engagement leads to great opportunities for us, particularly for the least among us, and that is our obligation. So let's keep staying in the fight and doing what's best for the people around us.
Micah 6 and 8 all day. Before we go, let's just share some affirmations in here with you. Belinda, praying for you, Rahsaan. I believe you'll be fair and lead the Plymouth's DA office with wisdom and understanding. Sharon Hinton, Rahsaan, my brother from another mother, the good old uncle. We got an Auntie Java. Now we got an Uncle Java. As a Black man, I've learned I need to be more than proud. I needed to learn the issue, support the campaigns that are aligned with my values, and give my time and treasures. Excited for this king. Read that real good right there, Jesus. Uncle Java. Okay, that's his new nickname. That is, you can get me for that later. People are saying if you make this consideration, vote for Rahsaan Hall for Plymouth County District Attorney. Man, you really have sparked a lot of love in the Java Cafe, and there are some prayer warriors and some in here, and so they will definitely keep you covered, sir. Rahsaan, I'm going to go share some announcements and check in with folks. You stay tuned next week because I'm trying to get one of our federal officials. We got Your Healthy Java Tuesday. We got gubernatorial candidate Sonia Chang Diaz on Wednesday, and State Representative Liz Miranda on Thursday. So,
all right.
Yeah, man, they have some shoes to fill following up behind you.
Oh, please.
I saw you go. I set you up, brother. I love and appreciate you, man, and I will be in touch. And not too many days hence after, and if you make the decision, just keep Java with Jimmy in mind to come back.
Of course.
And we'll be glad to have you, sir.
All right, man. That sounds good. Thank you for having me, bro.
All right, I appreciate you, brother.
Peace.
Everyone, that was our wonderful friend and advocate and brother, Rahsaan Hall. And as you see on the ticker right there, shameless plug. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure you go to Twitter and Facebook and also subscribe on YouTube and follow Java with Jimmy. You can go to YouTube and watch all the videos, maybe for the past 3-4 months. But we're in the works of getting all of the Java with Jimmy videos from March 24th. 2020 put on there. But go ahead, follow the page, stay up to date. We have a website coming. We kind of debuted last night. We have a new platform that's coming as well. And so if you enjoy conversations like this, make sure you follow and especially like your community-driven platform, Java with Jimmy here. Wanted to let you know that tomorrow is We Need to Know Wednesday. That will be here with me. We'll check in on some things. I'll share with you the plans to do a 4-year later We Need to Know session in February. And also on Thursday, we want to let you know that we have Exit Fame, who is coming into the room. He is a local rap artist that just released a new project. He's a man of faith. And so for Thankful Thursdays on Thursday, we're going to practice some thankfulness and some rhymes with Exit Fame. And so that's taking place on Thursday. And I believe that is it for me today. We're going to get ready to wrap up. I believe I checked in with most of the comments. Thank you all. I seen some attention on stars there. Thank you all so much. It is much appreciated. Philip, thank you for your comment about Rahsaan, a man with both integrity and compassion. My Aunt Denise is in the room. So happy to see young Black men building and concerned about our communities, not just talking, but doing it. Good to see you in the room. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap up. We will see you. Today is Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for We Need to Know Wednesdays. And don't forget, Thursday, we will also be here with Exit Fame practicing some thankfulness and rhymes as well. So we will see you then. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.